is Lilith. So within mythology, we have this ubiquitous, original feminine archetype known as Lilith. She's considered a demon in a lot of mythologies. She's somewhat of an equivalent to Kali or Lady Babylon. She represents the dark feminine mysteries, the woman who is untamed, a bit wild, a bit primordial, and definitely taboo. And where she fits into astrology is she is known as Black Moon Lilith. So everyone has Black Moon Lilith somewhere in their charts. And I'll delve more deeply into why she's important to connect with. But first, I'll describe what Black Moon Lilith measures. It measures actually the darkest point of the moon's elliptical orbit. And so it's where the feminine principle is in the deepest abyss, you could say. And Lilith is an archetype that I think we collectively struggle with because she has a lot to do with projection, shame, repressed emotions, and desires. And this is something that most humans deal with. Whether you're male or female, you have Lilith located somewhere in your birth chart, some house and some sign, and in aspect to planets. People who have Lilith conjunct the sun, the ascendant, the moon, or other prominent personal planets or angles you could say are Lilith types, and more strongly carry this archetype and perhaps demonstrate the qualities of this archetype for others. So let's get a little more into why Lilith is important to consider. So in mythology, Lilith was the original woman made from the same soot, the same primordial earth as Adam. And Adam basically wanted Lilith to be under him and to serve him. And Lilith said, you know what? I actually have my own passion, my own creativity, my own desire within me beyond being an underling. And Adam was really upset by this. So essentially, God sent him Eve, and Eve was the obedient, pure woman. And in Lilith, we get this temptress, the seductress, and a wild, unhinged feminine, you could say, who refused to be an underling, who said, hey, I have just as much creative capacity. I have just as much of my own desire that I would like to express this. And this was deemed as destructive. And in mythology, it was said that she disappeared off to the Red Sea and did a bunch of bad things. I won't elaborate on what. But really, metaphorically, the Red Sea is this feminine mystery, these blood mysteries, and it's scary. It's demonized somewhat by parts of society or certain individuals in society that, wow, this wild feminine is a threat to our structure, to our societal safety and structure. When really we can understand this archetype more as a destruction, a necessary destruction or rebellion or deviation in order to come more in truth to our shadow and to own the parts of us that we might otherwise suppress or repress. Eve is the part of us that can comply with ease. Eve is the part that wants to maintain the peace, be the nurturer, be the obedient servant to the man archetype, the patriarchy, you could say. But regardless, again, of your sex, it's really looking at the two parts of the female that are schismed, broken. And this can create a lot of dysfunction within both men and women. Because if we view women or the feminine principle as this black or white thing, for instance, you are either a nurturer or you're this evil temptress. You're either a a loyal, subservient servant, or you're this independent, unhinged, unmanageable something. You're either this very moral character who abides by the society's moral codes and rules, or you are a debaucherous and somewhat degenerate person who, wow, is really something to be ashamed of. And it's not to say that doesn't exist, that can exist, the extremes, right? But really we want to integrate those extremes so that we don't act out in ways from repressing one or both sides of this schism. So by identifying Lilith in your birth chart, it's the area of life. It's the area of your expression that doesn't want to comply, in a sense. It's that raw, feminine, creative force that knows you actually need to destroy some of the ways of doing something to come up with something new. Sometimes you have to go into a dark night of the soul to emerge and really appreciate the light. And ultimately, we all have lesser or more base desires within us and more evolved or more moralistic, you could say, desires in us as well. But to over-identify with either extreme creates ultimately this kind of schism. So to reject Lilith is to reject the creativity that transforms and liberates. And we can gain our own kind of autonomy and gain our own sense of empowerment, really, by saying no to this maybe outdated or outmoded way of doing things. And depending on where Lilith is in your chart, that'll give you a clue of what area of life you're really here to kind of stand more in that empowerment. So I recently did a reading, and this woman that I did the reading for, amazing work she was doing. She had a lot of previous blocks around receiving value for some of her work, and she does a lot of beautiful energy work. And she also is specifically tuned into helping people break ancestral conditions or conditioning, inherited belief systems and energetic patterns that keep them in lower vibrational states. And I looked at her chart, and she had Lilith in Aries in the 4th house, conjunct Jupiter, and conjunct, forget what else. There was like a few planets in the configuration. Maybe it'll come to me. But the idea is that Lilith in this 4th house, just to give an example, was really being expressed through the kind of teachings and healing work she was sharing. She helped people cut lineage and ancestral cords that might be outdated, that might carry the resonance of shame from different generational lines. And the idea was clearing that so that people can be more in their power. And so it was really interesting that she had such a prominent kind of like Lilith archetype in her chart, and it reflected so clearly in the gifts that she has to share. So Lilith allows us to open into our passion. This woman, as an example, was so passionate about this. She felt it was such a big part of her heart and her calling and her offering to the world. And so I invite you to connect with your Lilith, because when you unlock or untap this, if you aren't already in touch with it, many people are, but a lot aren't. When you connect with this, you step into a more unapologetic version of yourself that is on fire, that is really passionate, and that has a gift to share and a way to transform that area of life that other people might not be brave enough to bring transformation to. So I'm going to be doing a course on Lilith. If you are interested in joining this, it's going to be a 3-week program, and I'm going to keep it intimate, and we're going to meet live, and we'll go over your unique Lilith placements. We will talk about ways to channel both the Eve and the Lilith archetypes and integrate them. And we will also, I will also be available to you answering kind of your own personal questions connected to your chart, and you will get to meet with others who share this interest of aligning to their purpose, feeling in connection and integration of their whole. I hope you found this useful, and I look forward to sharing more.